Hello everyone, welcome to the next session of the watercolors practice and this time uh, I am trying a different technique and not wetting the paper at all. I just want to stick the paper, aquarelle paper, with the tape to the board. And of course, I try to kind of do imaginary landscape just for training, mixing the colors, aquarels, and everything. So I would suggest you to try to do the same. Of course, you don't have to do exactly the same, but try what I am showing here. Because in aquarelle what is important is this little fantasy to mixing the colors right, unless you want to be of course super hyper realistic. I am here having different approach, a little bit much more personal, artistic kind of perception of the space on the landscapes. So I try to imagine certain things, certain landscape which I had in my mind, and just try to do it. So basically, I applied it, try to create some kind of clouds, and trying different things. So you can apply, if it's too much water, you can take the water with towel paper and apply again if something is too wet. You can leave it also for a while, a little bit to a little bit to dry, not too much, but just rest calm and do other things. Like in this case, I just move down to the paper, let the parts of the paper in the upper part is a little bit, as you see, because of the water, too much water. If you put, you're gonna have kind of mountains. The paper gonna kind of walk a little bit. So, but this kind of working on the dry paper, what is good for the, especially for the beginners, that you have much more control. It's easier for you to control what you do. Because in wet paper you have to really have much more precise movements, much more precise strokes in order to do what you want to do. And in this kind of, I would say, half demi-dry technique, you have much more control on the intensity and everything. So you still work with layers, of course. You do lighter after you just apply a little bit darker on top, strokes, try to create kind of perspective, far away space. And with this method where the paper is not completely wet before you start putting the colors, you have it's going to be easier for you to just work up some kind of as I do now, for example. I'm trying to imitate kind of suggest that there is some kind of grass in front of me in order to even emphasize more this pace. So as you see, I will slowly apply kind of arbusts, some kind of trees coming out. Further, I will create a little bit kind of landscape, some kind of a small village and everything. But at this moment, I am still working on the vegetation. And it's just, if something is green, doesn't mean you have to do green. You have to just kind of do the variation of the colors of the bushes and everything, as normally you have. If you look at the bushes, there's all kind of colors there, and you can try mixing all kind of different colors and what kind of effects going to give you this when you mix them and you try to put a little bit bushes in different variations of intensity of colors and forms. So as you have certain parts wet, you can add more and more intensity on it, and it's going to be slightly kind of working well. The distribution of the color, if you even do little touches, it would distribute the water, because all the surfaces when you paint, of course, that you leave for a while a little bit wet. So where it's still wet, this part you apply, for example, my mountains are still wet, but not like very much, so I just put a few lines there. And now I get back to the, for example, for the sky. I'm trying to create some kind of, a little bit dramatic drama in the clouds, kind of, that's symbolic depiction of the clouds and the sky. So it's not like don't try to be kind of hyper realistic, whatever. No, it's just kind of looking for some effects of dimensionality and a little bit dramaturgy in the sky, but not kind of stormy, but just kind of normal day, partially cloudy, cloudy, partially sunny. Just kind of use all kind of colors which you imagine that the sky is kind of variation of the colors and everything. Try to mix there and try to create some kind of dimension even in the sky itself. So this kind of practice would allow you to feel much more comfortable with the process of working with aquarels. As I mentioned in the previous video when I was doing the apple, it all depends, of course, what you want to achieve, but the real aquarel is really working with colors, spreading them, and it's much more kind of artistic approach to anything. In this case it's the landscape, but if you're going to do architecture, you will see that's you have to eliminate many things. You just use the kind of basic lines to indicate the space and indicate some kind of deepness of the situation you kind of try to depict. And if you see how I use the strokes to imitate some kind of bushes and some kind of trees, so it's just very light, and and you use it, you put it even darker certain parts. Once the tree is still wet, you just add a little bit stronger colors in certain parts. Sometimes, of course, if you put too much, you just with the brush. You always clean the brush. Whatever you do, each time you put color. Okay, so before you work with the branches and everything, first clean the brush and let it a little bit touch a little bit the towel paper so it sucks a little bit the water out, and then get back to your tree and try to adjust, either disperse with the water slightly with the wet brush, or just put new paint and just try to mix the colors and try to kind of imitate, give the symbolic kind of impression of something, some kind of vegetation which is having different intensities of different colors, different intensity of which depend what is there, but just try to imitate some kind of Thanksgiving impression of some kind of landscape which has all kind of different arbors, different vegetation in front of you. You are kind of behind this, and you look in the horizon there, the line, and just just good stuff to try how you can actually mix the colors and get kind of interesting effects when the colors try to work together, when the surface is still humid, still a little bit wet. You try to kind of try all kind of things, and just practice this way, because whatever you do, even if you do flowers, whenever you do architecture, you do even portraiture, whatever, it depends, of course, what kind of effects you want to get, because with the super realistic parts, you actually work mostly, if we're talking about illustratory work, you mostly work with rather dry surface, except certain elements. You wet them and you do some kind of special effects. But most of the time, if you do birds or animals or much more kind of elaborated forms, then you don't wet too much the paper and just do aquarelle. But they're much more kind of you have. If you want to have super precision, is different story. That's why aquarelle is very popular in any kind of illustrator work, because it's really a great medium to play with it. You can have mixed techniques, for example, sky you can make with wet paper, and all the other details could be much more precise and done really on the semi kind of dry surface. So it's really a great medium. The only problem is it's extremely difficult, because, as I mentioned previously, probably when I was doing the apple, that mistakes, like in realistic drawing, the very hyper realistic drawings, is hard to correct. To a certain degree, you're going to be able always correct a bit here and there, but it depends, of course, what kind of paper you use. If you have good quality paper, which works very well with water, and the water could be spread evenly and everything, because it's also, the question is, on good paper you can do much more variation, much more kind of adjustments, much more corrections and everything. If you have average quality or low quality of paper, you have to work very fast and do the things you want to do much faster, and this is not always for kind of lot of working out places, because the paper starts kind of having residues. If you tear the paper with the brush and it's too wet, it's gonna get kind of unpleasant things. You can, when everything is dry, you can clean them a little bit. They're gonna go away slightly, but not completely. So if you want to work out places, you have to have really very resistant paper, aquarelle paper, which of course, if you do such kind of work, because there is some kind of effect, you can scratch the aquarelle after with the kind of scalpel. You can do kind of erasing to certain parts. I'm talking about the eraser. When you can erase, you can buy eraser for the ink. So this kind of erasers, you can also do some special effects additional yet to certain parts in the aquarelle as well. But you can of course add also aquarelle pencil on top of it, and it's up to you. I'm going to show you a technique in some of the next videos where you can mix both, because what I try to show in this videos is all kind of different things. The first was the wet paper, wet technique with the apple. Now is a little bit on the dry paper I try to wet a little bit certain parts and do what I want to do. Of course I do this in my style, I do in the technique I like to do. For me aquarelle is I use a lot aquarelle for sketching when I travel and everything, and what it means is that it's fast and relatively fast and brief note of what I see in front of me. So also take pictures as well, but in case I do painting, sometimes I have the aquarelle and I have also the picture. So if I'm interested to go much more further and elaborate certain even paint center landscape or whatever it is paysage or kind of architectural landscape, whatever. I have references, I have photographic references, and I have my artistic impression of the space using the aquarelle kind of fast sketching. This is kind of, and the fantasy of colors. That what is good about, I like the kind of trying different, intensities and different colors mixed together to give the impression of vegetation, some kind of bushes, and everything. So those kind of touches, of course, if you know how to draw, it helps enormously in aquarelle, unless you of course do kind of abstract and really artistic aquarelles, in sense that the figurative aspect of it is less important to you and everything. So of course it's as I mentioned also previously, that all depends what you're looking for when you do the aquarelle. Those videos are done especially so you can practice this kind of mixing of colors and what you can get when you just touch one color to the other, and when the surface is still wet, not everything wet, because in everything wet is you're going to have different things. As you see here, I am using, actually I do this, I wet certain parts and I add some colors, but not too much, because for me I want to just create kind of deepness, some kind of landscape which would have the kind of space, kind of interesting space, not just one green color because everything is green or whatever. No, I want to see a little bit much more, coloration there. Always when I look at the space, even if everything is green, I try to imagine how could I get one tree from the other and everything, not having all the trees green or something. That's just a very common error of whoever starts doing aquarels, that what they do, they see all the same, less or more. And you need to have the variation of the colors, a bit fantasy. Of course, if you practice a lot, you will get this automatically. With the time it will come to you, and you would see the green, not just green, but you would see the green red, green brown, blue, whatever is the case. This comes, of course, the sensibility and the creativity, chromatic creativity. It comes to you as you practice this, and you have to always take in consideration that of course the paper is expensive, even the less the worst quality or whatever is still expensive aquarelle paper, and it's hard to do things which you don't want to throw it. You want to be as good as possible, but as in drawing, in painting in particular, acrylic painting, oil painting is no problem. You can always cover this stuff. If something you did wrong, you can always put another on top. Aquarelle is actually not as easy to do this, and to a certain degree, some small stuff you can correct, but in general, if you do something wrong, it's just done, and you take another paper and try again. So you have to get used to this, that this might happen, and it as any learning is at a certain cost, and of course before you learn, you're going to destroy probably few papers or many or few. It depends how it's going to get to you. Some of you are going to need more time, some of you less, but that's a question of practice only. So you see here, I try to just kind of briefly, few strokes, kind of imitate something which would be kind of buildings, some kind of in the middle of the view I have, the landscape. There is something far away which I want to give impression like kind of some kind of small village, few buildings, whatever. and in order to be much more communicative in this sense, I'm going to add a little bit tower, so I'm going to kind of imitate maybe some kind of church or something there, so it would be much more, persuasive as a village or something, because just the buildings like this and everything is not very clear, so I will put some tower there. Of course, I could put some white, to indicate the, but I don't want to do it because far away you don't see perfectly well this stuff and everything. So I just keep it like this. In aquarelle, normally you don't use white, unless you want to sometimes do certain effects. You can mix the color with the white to have like lighter color, and you put on top and everything. You can use this stuff, of course, but to me, the mastery of aquarelle is that you try to predict, where the white you want to stay. In this case, I didn't thought about doing the village, so I just kind of cover the space. But normally, if I would, because it's kind of, I'm creating this as I paint. So this is another exercise you can do, that you can try to imagine things and in the same time have fun mixing colors and trying stuff. You might have some picture, whatever, to just give you, not to copy this picture, but basically to just simply have some kind of references, so it would be easier for you to imagine the space and everything. Try this kind of stuff. You can even try to do the same what I have done here, step by step, and of course you can't make perfect copy because it's almost impossible, but something which would resemble a little bit to this. And as I mentioned already, this is just for practicing. It's not like kind of my intention is not to show you super hyper kind of landscape, whatever. It's just for practice, how you practice with your brush, the strokes and everything, and how you can imitate space and create the space, the deepness and stuff like this. This is good for, and it's also going to teach you kind of liberty. You don't kind of stress with having perfection everywhere. No, just go like kind of half abstract little bit landscape to a certain degree, of course. Okay, so have fun, and I will see you soon with some other practice of aquarels. And so have fun, smile and paint, and see you soon. Bye bye.